My name is David, and I never imagined that I'd have to barricade a person in my own garage. But when you're dealing with an HOA president who operates the neighborhood like her personal dictatorship, sometimes you have to think outside the box. It was 6:12 a.m. on the dot when the thumping of engines rumbled my driveway. Through my window, I blinked in shock. Two beige Ford F-150s drove directly into my unlocked garage. Each bore a magnetic sign that said HOA Enforcement Unit, which appeared roughly as official as a kid's lemonade stand permit. From the first truck, a Chihuahua wearing a neon vest yelped like it was at the head of a K-9 revolution. In the second sat none other than Patricia Holbrook, self-proclaimed HOA queen that she is, putting on lipstick in her rearview mirror and singing along to what sounded like a self-help book on tape. That's when my grandfather Earl came out. World War II vet cap on his noggin, fuzzy slippers on his peds. He eyeballed the circus, hit the remote to close the garage door, and observed it clapping shut, with Patricia still there. Gently locking it off from the exterior, he grabbed his phone, took a sip of his chamomile tea, and spoke in a whiskey-smooth voice. "Hello, officers? Yeah, I think we've got a voluntary hostage situation going on at 4729 Maple Ridge Drive. Okay, but let me back up. I'd recently relocated to Pine Valley Estates only 6 months ago. The realtor had guaranteed me a peaceful hood, and what he assured me was an optional HOA. As a home-based software engineer, all I cared for was quiet, time to code and mess around with my custom mechanical keyboards. The house included the ideal backyard for a greenhouse where I was going to grow heirloom tomatoes. The HOA was voluntary, but Patricia Holbrook made it sound like federal law. She had the passion of a binge listener of true crime podcasts who determined she was meant to crack cases that weren't even real. With a Bluetooth headset stuck to her ear and a sparkly clipboard marked Compliance Crusader, she managed to get half the neighborhood signed up for her miniature regime. I declined politely, which got me a starring role in her weekly newsletter as a rogue element threatening community standards. The truth? My lawn was tidy, my house spotless. I even put in native flowers to pollinators. My sole crime was not wanting to pay $200 a month so Patricia could use a ruler to measure grass height. That's when the harassment began. Anonymous messages taped to my door regarding non-regulation mailbox placement, even though mine was the same as everybody else's. Then there were the drone flyovers, Patricia's teenage son Brandon flying around my house in return for gaming gift cards. When I took video calls, the worrying caused my coworkers to believe that I resided next door to an airport. Then there were the passive-aggressive group texts. In some way, Patricia obtained my number and included me on the Pine Valley HOA update chain. She'd put up close-up shots of my property, circled around random violations. One warning cited my garden hose for being wound counterclockwise rather than clockwise. A second warned of a solitary fallen leaf on my driveway at 7:03 a.m. and captioned it, "Some neighbors respect community standards." It got worse. She complained that visiting friends exhibited excessive vehicle diversity because their vehicles were not all earth tones. She even stood in my driveway and held up a color wheel as if judging a painting exhibition. I ignored her hogwash. When she complained about my greenhouse design under a so-called shadow ordinance, I produced my city-permitted permits. When she measured the distance from the curb to my trash can, I grinned and waved. But the fun turned sinister. My garage door ceased to lock. I'd been meaning to fix it, but didn't. That oversight gave Patricia her opening. Which brings us back to that morning, Patricia in my garage, acting like she owned the place. Her trucks blocked the entire space. She'd set up a folding command center, laminated HOA bylaws, a portable printer, even kombucha in a mason jar bedazzled with HOA president. I watched from the side window as she shuffled papers like a commander mapping out an invasion. "Patricia," I yelled, maintaining my even tone, "you must vacate my premises at once." She gazed up with a smile that could chill steel. "Oh, David, just in time. This garage comes under temporary HOA authority awaiting compliance review. Refer to Section 14C of the Emergency Annex." She wand a paper like it was holy writ. "I'll have to print you off a copy after I get settled." "There is no emergency annex," I barked. "You're trespassing. Get out now, or I'm calling the police." Patricia guffawed, dripping in condescension. "The police? Sweetie, I have excellent rapport with the police. Officer Jenkins purchased cookies from my daughter's Girl Scout troop. Also, this is official HOA business. You can't call the police on community betterment projects. That's when Grandpa Earl came out of nowhere and stood next to me, his veteran eyes glinting with that kind of peaceful trouble only a man who'd weathered Korea and 2 HOA wars in Florida could possess. He sized Patricia up in a second, recognized right through her power-tripping shenanigans, and leaned over to me with a half-smile. "David," he said softly even, "go make yourself some breakfast. I'll take care of this." Before I could argue, he had already pushed the button on his garage fob. The massive steel door rolled down like a theater curtain, shutting Patricia, her sidekick Keith, who I now noticed was asleep in the passenger seat, and Lieutenant Snuffles, the Chihuahua enforcement officer, in the garage. "Grandpa," I whispered in a cold sweat, "we can't just lock her up." Earl didn't bat an eyelash. "We're not locking her up," he replied with seasoned accuracy. "We're protecting our property from squatters who won't vacate. Big difference. She's welcome to walk back out the door she came in. We're just preventing her from taking your garage." Then, as if he'd been through this playbook a dozen times before, Earl calmly dialed 911, his tone as casual as ordering delivery. "Yes, hello officers," he said in a smooth baritone. "This is Earl Morrison at 4729 Maple Ridge Drive. We've got 2 individuals who broke into my grandson's garage with trucks, claiming authority they don't have. They've set up what looks like a headquarters inside. For our own protection, we've got them stashed until you get here." Patricia's screams muffled through the garage door, ranting of illegal imprisonment and HOA protocol violations. But Earl didn't so much as bat an eyelash. He merely opened up a folding lawn chair, gave me another one, and cracked open a bag of honey-roasted peanuts. "Sit," he said with a simple gesture. "Takes 15 minutes for reality to set in with these sorts." Sure enough, the shouting softened into nervous bargaining. Through the narrow window, we caught Patricia frantically scrolling her phone, desperate to find bylaws to justify breaking and entering. By the 12th minute, flashing police lights painted the street. 2 cruisers rolled up, no sirens, just business. Curious neighbors began spilling out with coffee mugs, eager to watch the HOA queen finally meet her match. Pine Valley hadn't experienced this kind of excitement since the Hendersons' inflatable Santa exploded on Christmas last year. Officer Chun and Officer Ramirez walked up, their faces a combination of curiosity and incredulity. Earl and I spread out the evidence: Patricia's threatening texts, her drone stalking, even doorbell cam footage of her trucks bursting into my garage at dawn. "Okay, I think I get this," Officer Chun explained slowly, gruffly trying to put it together. "This lady broke into your garage with 2 cars, established an illegal HOA enforcement office, and says she has jurisdiction over your private property, just because you wouldn't sign up for her voluntary club?" "That's the whole thing," I affirmed. Ramirez shook his head and muttered, "Unbelievable," as he headed to the garage. "Ma'am," he shouted through the steel door, "this is the Pine Valley Police Department. Come out right now." There was a moment of silence, then Patricia's voice, trembling with bravado. "Officers, oh thank God you've arrived. These gentlemen illegally held me against my will while conducting an official HOA inspection. Take them away at once for interfering with community governance." I noticed Chin's eyebrows leap in amazement, his patience tried. "Ma'am, come out of the garage, now." The side door groaned open. Out strutted Patricia, resembling a deposed general who had not received the notice. Her hair was frizzed from the wet air, mascara ran down her face, and her navy blazer was powdered white from a knocked-over bag of garden lime. She attempted to brush it off, making herself appear ghostly and deranged instead. "Officers, I can explain," she stuttered, pushing a pile of papers into the air. "This is HOA emergency rules in a community aesthetic crisis." Officer Ramirez scrunched up his eyes. "And what crisis is that precisely?" Patricia extended a shaky hand toward my house. "He's building an unauthorized greenhouse. His postal carrier takes the wrong turn, and his trash cans are 7 inches from regulation." Chun pinched the bridge of his nose. "Ma'am, does Mr. David even pay HOA fees?" "Well, no." "And is joining obligatory?" "Not technically," she grumbled. "Did you have permission to come inside his garage?" Patricia's face contorted through anger, incredulity, and fear before landing. on raw indignation. Permission? I'm the HOA president. I have implied consent for all inspections under Pine Valley Aesthetic Jurisdiction. Ramirez calmly flipped open his notepad. Ma'am, what you've just described is trespassing, breaking and entering, and establishing an unauthorized command center in private property. That's not authority, it's a crime. The crowd of neighbors gasped. Some whispered, some chuckled, and a few even filmed the whole thing on their phones. For the first time, Patricia's ironclad confidence cracked. And in that instant, I understood. Her reign as Pine Valley's self-styled dictator was finally coming apart. The audience of neighbors grew, phones raised, filming every moment. In their midst, a number of HOA board members had materialized, frantically texting. I was certain at that moment Patricia's so-called regime was going to get a vote of no confidence. This is outrageous. Patricia screamed, her mask of command at last slipping. I spent 3 years defending property values. I measured grass in the rain. I color-coded violation notices. I authored a 37-page guide to seasonal wreaths. Keith staggered out of the garage, hair disheveled, eyes bleary. Patricia cares only for the best interests of the community, he mumbled feebly, then caught himself admitting to being a criminal. In an instant, he added, but I was sleeping. I had no idea where we were. Lieutenant Snuffles, the Chihuahua, called a halt to the war. He marched directly up to Earl, who picked him up and scratched his ears. Good boy, Earl laughed. Trapped on a sinking ship. Officer Chun interviewed us as Ramirez recorded the evidence, taking photos of the 2 HOA trucks stranded in my garage like whales beached. Their gaudy enforcement unit stickers sparkled in the sunlight like tacky costumes the day after Halloween. Mr. David, Chin asked gravely, would you like to press charges for criminal trespass? I made eye contact with Patricia. Her lipstick was smudged, her complexion wan. For an instant, I felt a spasm of sympathy, but then I recalled the harassment, the drones, and the 43 messages regarding my hedge pruning. Yes, I affirmed. I do. Patricia deflated like a slowly leaking balloon. You can't be serious. This is an HOA issue. It's grievance committee material. Ma'am, Ramirez responded levelly. You keep talking about an HOA Mr. David doesn't even belong to. The officers took her to the cruiser. She thrashed, shouting in hysterical despair. This is a conspiracy. Without me, who is going to measure fence pickets? Who is going to police mailbox paint? This neighborhood will fall apart. But the neighbors weren't convinced. From the gathering, Sandra grumbled just loud enough for all to hear. Good. Perhaps now I am able to finally paint my front door. The group erupted in laughter. Keith sensibly capitulated, conceding he was Patricia's nephew, drafted into what she referred to as an internship in community management. The officers warned him off and instructed him to seek out another internship, preferably one that did not include garage break-ins. Tow trucks later carried away the HOA's beige F-150s as Patricia stared in despair, her kingdom crumbling before her very eyes. She screamed about emergency annexes and violation subsections even as Officer Chin recited her rights. You have the right to remain silent. I waive that right. Patricia barked. Everyone needs to hear this. This is what you get when you are too concerned about your community, when you give up weekends to develop outdoor furniture color palettes. The cruiser drove off, Patricia still expostulating out the rolled-down window about driveway crack width. The neighbors scattered, buzzing with relief. A few board members came over to talk to me personally. David, explained HOA Treasurer Margaret Wu, we had no clue she'd gotten this far. We're really sorry. The secretary, Tom Bradley, chimed in. We're having an emergency meeting tonight. Leadership will shift. By nightfall, the HOA WhatsApp group was ablaze. I listened in on the board's video call as Earl grilled celebratory cheese. The vote to oust Patricia was unanimous. Even her own vice president voted against her. It was discovered she'd been using HOA money to finance those trucks, the drone, and even Lieutenant Snuffles, listed as an emotional support enforcement animal. The audit uncovered more treasures, a $3,000 laminating machine for notice of violation postings, and an online military strategy course. The fallout was quick. Patricia was accused of criminal trespass, breaking and entering, and embezzlement of HOA funds. Her attorney, clearly fatigued, pleaded that she was afflicted with excessive community enhancement disorder, a defense that the judge laughed from the bench. Her punishment: 100 hours of community service, keeping City Hall's public gardens in check under the supervision of a landscaper ordered to judge her efforts by the same inflexible standards she used to apply to others. She also had $3,000 in fines and complete restitution for the HOA money she blew. But the worst punch wasn't legal, it was personal. Patricia's employer, a regional insurance firm, got to see the video of her burglarizing my garage during work hours. She was immediately fired. Her boss later confessed they'd been waiting for an excuse ever since she attempted to enforce a 30-page dress code on casual Fridays. Inside the courtroom, as the judge pronounced her sentence, Patricia's expression changed: shock, anger, disbelief, before settling on something close to realization. "Your Honor," she breathed, her authoritative voice soft now. "I merely wanted to uphold standards." The judge sat forward. "Ms. Holbrook, there is a difference between upholding standards and committing offenses. $3,000 fine. 100 hours of service." Court dismissed. Her lips opened and closed, like a fish trying to breathe. And in an instant, the tight grip Patricia had on Pine Valley broke for good. As Patricia received her sentence in the courtroom, the town of Pine Valley fell silent. For the first time in months, the neighborhood was lighter, freer, like someone had finally opened a window in a hot room. Earl sat back in his chair, arms folded, a small smirk on his face. "Tyrants," he said. "They always seem to overlook the one rule that is most important. Sooner or later, the neighborhood riots." The audience laughed, but I couldn't help thinking about how close we'd all been to losing it all to one individual's desire for domination. The drones, the phony bylaws, the trucks, it all was ridiculous now, but the harm had been done. But here we were, standing together, more united because of it. On the evening, neighbors came into my yard with potluck offerings and congratulatory toasts. Children played across the lawn Patricia used to measure with a ruler. Sandra painted her front door bright red the day after. Lieutenant Snuffles defected officially, contentedly sleeping in Earl's lap with a full belly of barbecue remnants. And I knew something greater than beating Patricia. I'd earned a community. Individuals who had previously passively endured her iron-fisted rule were now laughing, eating, and making plans for a neighborhood liberated from terror. Patricia's fall wasn't merely justice, it was evidence. Evidence that no HOA president, no clipboard dictator, no self-appointed enforcer gets to steal freedom without accountability. With the sun behind the pines casting color in fire-orange stripes, Earl tossed back his sweet tea. To freedom, he stated matter-of-factly, and to garages remaining garages. The whole group erupted into laughter. I glanced about at the happy faces, the tranquil homes, and sensed something Patricia could never create with 1,000. Rulebooks, real community. And if you thought this was the final HOA nightmare I've had to fight, think again. Because next week, I'll explain how my neighbor attempted to swipe my driveway and found himself owing me his fence. Welcome to Neighbor Wars HQ, where justice always has the last laugh.